The morning rush at Crescent City Coffee always reminded Callie Monroe that life moved in waves. Some days were tsunamis, others mere ripples, but they all demanded the same thing from her: survival. Her fingers moved with practiced precision across the espresso machine, the familiar burn of steam against her skin barely registering anymore. The November chill seeping through the cafe's windows only made the warmth of coffee and desperation more palpable. "Triple shot Americano for Richard," she called out, her voice carrying the practiced cheerfulness that came with years of customer service. The businessman grabbed his drink without looking up from his phone, leaving Callie to wonder if anyone ever really saw the people serving them. The weight of her phone in her back pocket felt like lead. 3 missed calls from Noah's school counselor. She'd have to deal with that during her break, which wasn't for another 2 hours. Her brother had missed classes again, probably holed up in his room with those sketchbooks he never showed anyone. The thought made her stomach clench, but she pushed it down, like everything else. "Hey, can you cover for me while I restock?" her co-worker Destiny asked, already heading toward the storage room. Destiny, with her vibrant red braids and infectious laugh, was one of the few bright spots in Callie's morning shifts. She nodded, even though they were in the middle of rush hour and her feet already ached from standing since 5 a.m. A customer approached the counter, and Callie's rehearsed smile froze slightly. Something about him seemed different. Not in the way he looked, though he was undeniably striking with his dark suit and silver-gray eyes that reminded her of storm clouds, but in the way he looked at her, like he was actually seeing her. "Black coffee, please, large," he said, his voice carrying the kind of authority that came from corner offices and board meetings. "And whatever you'd recommend for someone who hasn't slept in 36 hours. Trying to break a record? The words slipped out before she could stop them, more genuine than her usual customer service banter. He actually smiled, though it didn't quite reach those storm cloud eyes. "More like trying to save my company from imploding. I'm running on spite and caffeine at this point." "In that case," Callie grabbed 2 cups. "You need our secret weapon, the dead man walking. 4 shots of espresso, a splash of caramel for sanity's sake, and a prayer for your heart." "Sounds perfect." He checked his watch. Definitely expensive, but not flashy. "Though if my heart gives out, I'm haunting this place." "We're used to ghosts in New Orleans," she replied, starting on his drinks. As she worked, she could feel his eyes on her. Not in the creepy way some customers stared, but with a kind of quiet curiosity that made her skin tingle. "I'm Reese," he offered, breaking protocol. Customers rarely gave their names before being asked. "Callie," she returned, though her name tag already told him that. "Though if anyone asks, I didn't recommend cardiac arrest in a cup." His laugh was unexpected, rich and genuine, like he'd surprised himself with it. "Your secret's safe with me." As she handed him the drinks, their fingers brushed. A small touch, barely there, but it sent a current through her that had nothing to do with the caffeine in the air. Their eyes met for a moment too long, and Callie felt something shift in the atmosphere, like the pressure change before a storm. "Thanks, Callie," he said softly, dropping a 20 in the tip jar. "For the coffee and the laugh. I needed both." She watched him leave, his tall frame cutting through the morning crowd with unconscious grace. Something about him lingered in her mind, like a song she couldn't quite remember but couldn't forget either. The moment shattered as her phone vibrated again. Reality crashed back in. Noah, bills, her night shift at the hotel bar, the endless cycle of barely keeping her head above water. She didn't have time for lingering looks or mysterious strangers, no matter how their eyes reminded her of incoming storms. The day continued its relentless march. By the time her shift ended at 2, Callie's feet were screaming and her mind was racing with the counselor's voicemail. Noah had skipped 3 days this week. His grades were slipping. They were concerned about his engagement. As if concern helped pay bills or heal wounds or make a teenage boy want to face the world. Again, the walk home was a blur of worry and mental calculations. She had 4 hours before her shift at the Royal Crescent Hotel's bar. 4 hours to check on Noah, make sure he ate something, Maybe catch a power nap if she was lucky. The November wind cut through her worn jacket, but she barely noticed. Her mind was too full of the weight of responsibility, of being everything to someone when she barely knew how to be anything to herself. Their apartment building looked exactly like what you could afford on 2 service industry jobs, functional, but fading like a photograph left too long in the sun. The elevator was perpetually out of order, so she climbed 4 flights of stairs, her legs protesting each step. "Noah?" she called out as she entered their small apartment. Silence answered her, but that wasn't unusual. Noah lived in silence these days, like he was trying to take up as little space in the world as possible. She found him where she expected, curled up in bed surrounded by scattered notebooks, his headphones a barrier between him and the world. His room was dark despite the afternoon sun trying to peek through his permanently drawn curtains. The sight of him, so young and so lost, made her heart ache in a way she couldn't afford to acknowledge. "Hey, kiddo," she said softly, sitting on the edge of his bed. He didn't respond, but she saw his shoulders tense slightly. He was awake, just hiding. "Want to tell me about the school calls?" The silence stretched between them like a living thing. Finally, Noah pulled his headphones down to his neck, though he didn't look at her. "What's the point?" His voice was rough from disuse. "It's all just noise, meaningless noise." Callie fought the urge to push, to demand, to shake him until the brother she remembered emerged from this shell of sadness. Instead, she placed her hand on his ankle, offering connection without demanding it. "The point is, you're still here. We're still here. And I'm not giving up on you even if you've given up on everything else." He shifted slightly and she caught a glimpse of his latest drawings. Dark spirals and sharp edges, pain made visible, on paper. "I'm sorry," he whispered, and the words carried the weight of more than just missed classes. "I know," she replied, because she did. She knew the weight of grief, of feeling like you're drowning while everyone else is breathing just, "Fine. How about we order pizza tonight? I'll leave money and you can get your favorite." "You should save the money," he muttered, but she saw the tiny spark of interest in his eyes. "Let me worry about the money." She squeezed his ankle gently. "You just worry about eating something that isn't cereal for dinner." As she got ready for her night shift, Callie caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She looked tired. She always looked tired these days. But something else caught her attention. The ghost of that morning's smile, the one the stranger, Reese, had pulled from her without trying. It felt foreign on her face, like borrowed clothing that didn't quite fit. She shook off the thought. One strange interaction with a handsome stranger didn't change anything. She had responsibilities, a brother to save, bills to pay. Romance and connection were luxuries she couldn't afford, like the designer coffee she served to others but never bought for herself. Still, as she pulled her hair into its usual messy bun and changed into her bartender's uniform, she couldn't quite shake the memory of storm-gray eyes and a laugh that sounded like forgotten possibilities. But that's all it could be. A memory, a moment, a ripple in the endless wave of survival that was her life. She left money for the pizza on the counter, along with a note for Noah. "Eat something, draw something, stay. I love you." The same words she left every day, a ritual as much for her as for him. Then she headed out into the gathering darkness, ready for another night of serving drinks and wearing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, not knowing that fate had more planned for her than just survival. The Royal Crescent Hotel's grand ballroom sparkled like a dream someone else was having. Crystal chandeliers cast honey gold light across marble floors, and the well-heeled crowd moved through the space like schools of exotic fish, glittering and untouchable. Behind the portable bar, Callie felt like an observer watching life through a one-way mirror. Private tech conference, her supervisor Roman had explained during setup. Some big cybersecurity summit. These people practically breathe money, so keep the drinks flowing and the smiles bright. Now 3 hours into her shift, Callie's cheeks ached from maintaining that professional mask. She'd mastered the art of being invisible while being watched, a skill that came from years of serving people who looked through you rather than at you. The weight of her phone in her pocket was a constant reminder of home, of Noah. He'd sent a single text, Pizza came, ate 2 slices. In their language of minimal communications, this was practically a novel. Whiskey, neat. The voice cut through her thoughts, familiar in a way that made her stomach drop. She looked up to find storm-gray eyes watching her with recognition dawning in them. Reese, the customer from this morning, stood before her bar in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Following me. The words slipped out before she could catch them, less professional than she intended. His lips quirked into a half-smile. I could ask you the same thing, though I suppose serving cardiac arrest in a cup wasn't enough. Now you're enabling my whiskey habits too. Just doing my part to keep the city's cardiologists employed. She reached for the top-shelf bourbon, noting how his eyes followed her movements. Rough day? More like rough quarter. He loosened his tie slightly, a small crack in his polished exterior. Nothing quite like trying to convince a room full of tech executives that your company's worth investing in after. He trailed off, something dark flickering across his features. After? She prompted, sliding his drink across the bar. After your ex-wife tries to tank your reputation and steal your clients. He took a long sip, and Callie watched his throat work, noticed the tension in his jaw. Sorry, I don't usually dump my problems on bartenders. Part of the job description, she replied, mixing a Manhattan for another guest without looking. We're like therapists, just with better props. That earned her another genuine laugh, the same kind that had surprised her this morning. Is that what I'm doing? Therapy? Well, you've hit the classics, work stress, ex-drama, just need to add some parent issues and we'll have the full set. Oh, we could be here all night unpacking that particular box. His eyes met hers over the rim of his glass and something electric passed between them. But I'd rather hear about you. Callie's hands stilled momentarily on the shaker she was holding. Not much to tell. I pour drinks, I make coffee, I exist. Somehow I doubt that's the whole story. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping. You're too good at seeing through people to be simple. The observation caught her off guard. Before she could respond, a commotion near the ballroom's entrance drew their attention. A man in an expensive suit was getting increasingly aggressive with one of the hotel staff, his voice carrying across the room. I don't care about your guest list. Do you know who I am? I'm here to speak with Reese Callahan. Reese's expression hardened, his entire body tensing. Christ. Maxwell Porter. My ex-wife's new attack dog. Callie watched as hotel security approached the situation. Friend of yours? Corporate lawyer who specializes in hostile takeovers. He's been trying to prove I stole proprietary information before the divorce. Reese drained his glass, which is ironic considering Christina's the one who... He cut himself off, knuckles white around the empty glass. Need somewhere to hide? The offer came spontaneously. When he looked at her questioningly, she nodded toward the service corridor behind the bar. Staff area, very exclusive club, no corporate lawyers allowed. For a moment, he seemed to wage an internal battle. Then Porter's voice rose again and decision crystallized in his eyes. Lead the way. Callie caught Roman's eye, signaling she was taking her break. She guided Reese through the back corridor, past storage rooms and industrial freezers, until they reached a small outdoor service balcony. The November night air was crisp, and the sounds of the French Quarter rose up from the streets below like distant music. Secret bartender sanctuary? Reese asked, his shoulder brushing against hers as they both leaned on the railing. Something like that. Good place to scream into the void when entitled customers get too much. She glanced at him. Or hide from corporate lawyers. He laughed, but it was a tired sound. My life wasn't always this complicated. 3 years ago, I was just a guy who got lucky with a startup idea. Now I'm fighting to keep my company while trying to prove I'm not the villain in someone else's story. Are you? The question was direct, but her tone wasn't accusatory. Am I what? The villain in her story? He was quiet for a long moment, looking out over the city lights. I worked too much, cared too much about the company, Didn't see the signs that she was unhappy until she was already gone, taking client lists and company secrets with her. His hands gripped the railing. But no, I never cheated, never lied, never tried to hurt her. I just failed at loving her the way she needed. Something in his voice resonated with a broken place inside Callie's chest. Sometimes people leave no matter how much you love them. The words came out barely above a whisper, heavy with the weight of personal history. He turned to look at her, really look at her, and Callie felt exposed, in a way that had nothing to do with physical vulnerability. Sounds like you know that feeling well. My mom, she admitted, surprising herself. She never talked about this, especially not with strangers on dark balconies. Cancer, 2 years ago. She didn't want to leave, but she swallowed hard. Sometimes love isn't enough to make people stay. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was weighted with understanding, with the recognition of shared wounds. Finally, Reese spoke softly. Is that why you work 2 jobs? I noticed the coffee shop this morning. Life's expensive, and I'm all my brother has left. She didn't know why she was telling him this, except that something about the night and his presence made the truth feel safer than usual. Before he could respond, her phone buzzed. Noah's name lit up the screen, sending a spike of anxiety through her chest. He never called unless... I need to take this, she said quickly, already moving toward the door. Callie. His voice stopped. Her. When she turned, he was holding out a business card. If you ever need anything, a friend, a coffee that doesn't cost a day's wage, someone who understands about people leaving. He paused, vulnerability flickering across his features. I'd like to see you again, somewhere that isn't a bar or a coffee shop. She hesitated, then took the card, tucking it into her pocket as her phone buzzed again. I have to go. I know. His eyes were soft in the dim light. Thank you. For the sanctuary. The walk back through the service corridor felt dreamlike, but Noah's third call snapped her back to reality. She answered just before reaching the bar, her heart pounding. Noah? What's wrong? I can't. His voice was choked, panicked. The walls are closing in, Cal. I can't breathe. I can't. I'm coming home, she said immediately, already signaling to Roman. Put on that playlist I made you, okay? The one with the rain sounds. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She clocked out in record time, barely registering Roman's concerned questions or the glittering crowd she left behind. As she rushed through the hotel lobby, she caught a glimpse of Reese in deep conversation with hotel security, presumably still dealing with Porter's intrusion. He looked up just as she passed, their eyes meeting briefly. She saw his expression shift to concern, but she couldn't stop, couldn't explain. The business card burned in her pocket like a promise or a warning as she ran toward the brother who needed her, leaving behind a man who saw her in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. But Noah came first. Noah always came first. The night air hit her face like a wake-up call, and she forced herself to focus on what was real. Her brother's need, the concrete beneath her feet, the familiar weight of responsibility settling back onto her shoulders. Whatever connection she'd felt on that balcony, whatever possibilities lingered in that business card, they belonged to a different world, one she couldn't afford to visit. But as she flagged down a taxi, her hand unconsciously pressed against her pocket, feeling the edges of the card through the fabric. Sometimes, she thought, the most dangerous things aren't the ones that hurt you, but the ones that make you want something more than survival. The taxi ride home felt eternal. Callie kept her phone pressed to her ear, listening to Noah's ragged breathing on the other end. She'd learned that silence was dangerous. He needed to hear her voice, even if she was just rambling about nothing. Remember that time Mom tried to make gumbo? She said, forcing lightness into her voice. And she used way too much cayenne. Pepper? We drank like a gallon of milk each. The memory ached, but she pushed through. You said your taste buds had PTSD. A weak laugh crackled through the phone. She was so mad when we ordered pizza instead. But she ate 3 slices. Callie watched the familiar streets blur past. Because that's what Mom did, made mistakes, laughed about them, and moved forward. The silence that followed was heavy. When Noah spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "I can't move forward, Cal. I'm stuck. Everything's stuck." The taxi pulled up to their building. Callie threw money at the driver, probably too much, but she couldn't care. "I'm here, Noah. Just hold on." She took the stairs 2 at a time, still, in her bartender uniform, her comfortable work shoes beating a desperate rhythm against the steps. Their door was unlocked, something they'd talk about later when the crisis passed, and she burst into the apartment to find Noah huddled in the corner of the living room, his sketchbook torn to pieces around him. "Oh, kiddo." She dropped, to her knees beside him, pulling him into her arms. At 18, he was taller than her now, but in moments like this, he felt small again, like the little boy who used to crawl into her bed during thunderstorms. "I ruined it," he choked out. "All my drawings. They were wrong. Everything's wrong." Callie held him tighter, feeling his whole body shake. "We can get new sketchbooks. We can fix this." "You can't fix me." The words exploded out of him with such force that she flinched. "Everyone keeps trying to fix me. The counselors, the doctors, you. But I'm not broken. I'm just wrong. Everything about me is wrong." "Noah." Mom would know what to do. His voice cracked. Mom would understand. The words hit Callie like physical blows. Of course she wasn't enough. She was just the sister, the substitute, the one trying to fill shoes too big for her feet. She swallowed hard, pushing down her own pain. This wasn't about her. "You're right," she said softly. "Mom would know better. She always did. But she's not here. And I'm trying my best, and I need you to try with me. Can you do that? Can you just try?" He didn't answer, but his breathing slowly steadied. They sat there among the torn pages of his art, holding each other in the dim light of their shabby apartment, 2 broken pieces trying to make a whole. Finally, Noah pulled back slightly. "I'm sorry about your shift." "Don't." Callie brushed his hair from his forehead. It needed a cut, but that was another expense they couldn't afford right now. "You're more important than any job." "But the bills are my problem to worry about." She stood up, pulling him with her. "Come on, let's get you some water, and then we'll clean this up together." As Noah went to the kitchen, Callie began gathering the scattered pieces of his artwork. Even in fragments, his talent was evident. Dark, swirling landscapes, faces half hidden in shadow, emotions captured in stark lines and heavy shading. Her heart ached at the beauty destroyed by pain. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She expected Roman checking on her hasty departure, but instead found a text from an unknown number. "I hope everything's okay. You left in such a hurry. If you need anything, Reese." She stared at the message, something warm and dangerous unfurling in her chest. He must have gotten her number from the employee records. She should be annoyed at the invasion of privacy, but instead found herself touching the words on the screen like they were something precious. "Who's that?" Noah's voice made her jump. He stood in the kitchen doorway, water glass in hand, looking more stable but exhausted. "No one," she said quickly. Too quickly. "Just work stuff." His eyes, so like her own, studied her face. "You're lying. You bite your lip when you lie." "It's complicated." She pocketed the phone without responding. "How about we watch something? Your choice." Noah didn't push, but she could feel his curiosity. They ended up on their worn couch, watching old episodes of cooking shows, their comfort viewing, a habit left over from nights spent in hospital waiting rooms during their mom's treatments. Around 3 a.m., Noah finally fell asleep, his head on her lap like when he was little. Callie stroked his hair, her own exhaustion a physical weight, but her mind wouldn't quiet. She pulled out her phone, looking at Reese's message again. Before she could overthink it, she typed, "My brother needed me. He comes first. Always." The response came surprisingly quickly. "Family first." I understand. But my offer stands. If you need anything, even just someone to talk to. Callie's throat tightened. When was the last time someone had offered her help without expectation? She thought about the way he'd looked at her on that balcony, like he saw past her carefully constructed walls. Why? She texted back. You don't know me. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. Maybe I'd like to. No pressure. No expectations, just coffee sometime when you're ready. She shouldn't want this, shouldn't even consider it. Her life was complicated enough without adding a man with his own demons to the mix. But something about his words, no pressure, no expectations, touched a lonely place inside her she usually pretended didn't exist. I'll think about it, she replied, then added, thank you for understanding about tonight. Thank you for the sanctuary when I needed it. Seems fair to offer you the same. Callie looked down at Noah's sleeping face, peaceful for the first time in hours. Her entire world had narrowed to taking care of him after their mom died. She'd put everything else on hold. Her nursing degree, her dreams, her heart. It was the right choice, the only choice. But sitting there in the quiet dark, her brother's steady breathing the only sound, she allowed herself to imagine what it might be like to have someone to lean on. Someone who understood loss and responsibility. Someone who looked at her like she was more than just the roles she played, sister, caretaker, survivor. Her phone lit up one more time. Sweet dreams, Callie. When you're ready for that coffee, you know where to find me. She didn't respond, but she saved his number. Just in case, just maybe. Because sometimes she thought survival isn't enough. Sometimes the heart wants more, even when the mind knows better. The night deepened around them, and Callie sat guard over her sleeping brother, holding possibilities and fears in equal measure. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, work to return to, explanations to give, bills to worry about. But for now, in this quiet moment, she allowed herself to feel the weight of Reese's business card in her pocket, like a key to a door she wasn't sure she was ready to open. Outside their window, the sounds of New Orleans nightlife drifted up. Music and laughter. Life going on despite personal earthquakes. Callie closed her eyes, letting the familiar symphony wash over her. Her mother used to say that New Orleans was a city of second chances, of resurrections and reinventions. Maybe, just maybe, there was still room for one more story of redemption in its ancient streets. But first she had to make it through this night. Had to help Noah find his way back to himself. Had to keep their small world from falling apart. Romance and possibility could wait. They would have to wait. Because some promises were made in blood and bone, in the spaces between heartbeats and breaths, in the sacred territory of family. Yet as she drifted into an uneasy sleep, her dreams were filled with storm-gray eyes and gentle understanding, with balcony confessions and the dangerous hope of being seen, really seen, for the first time in years. Sometimes even the strongest walls have cracks where light can slip through, changing everything inside. Sunday mornings at Crescent City Coffee were usually slower, but this one felt like it was dragging through molasses. Callie's eyes burned, from lack of sleep. After Noah's crisis, she'd managed maybe 3 hours before her morning shift. Her fingers fumbled with the espresso machine, betraying her exhaustion. "Girl, you look like death warmed over," Destiny said, hip-checking her gently. "Go take 5, I've got this." Callie started to protest, but her co-worker's stern look stopped her. In the break room, she slumped into a chair, pulling out her phone. 3 missed calls from Noah's school counselor, an email about a late utility bill, and a text from Reese. Morning coffee doesn't taste the same without cardiac arrest as an option. Despite her exhaustion, she smiled. They'd been texting sporadically since that night. Nothing deep, just gentle check-ins and light banter. It felt safe. Distant enough to not be threatening, but close enough to be a comfort. Trying to destroy my professional reputation? I have standards about killing customers. His response came quickly. Shame. I was hoping to haunt this place. Before she could reply, Destiny stuck her head in. Callie, there's someone here asking for you specifically. Frowning, Callie returned to the front. Her heart stuttered when she saw who waited at the counter. A woman in her 50s, elegantly dressed, with perfectly styled, silver-streaked, dark hair and sharp features that reminded Callie uncomfortably of medical bills and disappointed sighs. "Mrs. Winters," Callie said, her voice carefully neutral. "It's been a while. 2 years, 3 months. Her grandmother's voice was clipped, precise. Since the funeral. The mention of her mother's funeral sent a familiar pain through Callie's chest. "What can I help you with? Can a grandmother check on her grandchildren?" Mrs. Winters looked around the coffee shop with barely concealed disdain, "Though I had hoped to find you in better circumstances. I have a job. 2, actually. I pay my bills, take care of Noah." Callie's knuckles went white around the counter's edge. "Those seem like pretty good circumstances to me." "Yes, I've heard about how you're taking care of Noah." Her grandmother's eyes narrowed. "His school counselor called me. Did you know he's missing classes again? That he's in danger of not graduating?" The revelation that the school had contacted her grandmother felt like a betrayal. "I'm handling it." "Like you handled your nursing degree?" The words were precise, aimed to wound. "You had such potential, Calliope. Your mother would be—" "Don't." Callie's voice shook. "Don't you dare tell me what Mom would think. I'm offering to help." Mrs. Winters pulled out a checkbook. Of course she still used checks. Probably wrote them with a fountain pen. "Let me take Noah. He can live with me in Baton Rouge, attend a proper school, get the therapy he clearly needs." "No." The word came out sharp, final. "Don't let pride cost him his future." Her grandmother's voice softened slightly. "You're young. You should be living your life, not playing parent to a troubled teenager." "He's not troubled. He's grieving." Callie felt tears threatening but forced them back. "And he's not a burden. He's my brother. He needs more than you can give him." The truth in those words hurt worse than any lie. Callie thought of Noah's torn artwork, his panic attacks, the way he was slipping away despite her best efforts. But the thought of letting him go, of failing the one promise she'd made to her mother. "I appreciate your concern," she said, her voice carefully controlled. "But we're managing." "Are you?" Mrs. Winters raised an elegant eyebrow. "Working 2 jobs, living in that shabby apartment, watching your brother spiral while you pretend everything's fine. At least I'm here." The words came out before Callie could stop them. "Where were you when Mom was sick, when she needed her mother? One check at Christmas doesn't make you family." Something flickered in her grandmother's eyes. Pain or anger. Callie couldn't tell. "I'm trying to make up for that now." "It's too late." Callie straightened her spine. "We're not your chance at redemption, and Noah's not a project you can fix by throwing money at him. Being poor won't fix him either." Mrs. Winters' voice hardened again. "Think about it, Calliope. Really think about what's best for him." She laid a business card on the counter. Callie wanted to laugh at the parallel to Reese's card, still burning a hole in her pocket. "When you're ready to put his needs before your pride, call me." Callie watched her grandmother leave, her elegant heels clicking against the floor like accusations. Only when the door closed did she realize she was shaking. "Hey." Destiny's hand on her shoulder made her jump. "You okay?" "Fine." The lie tasted bitter. "I need some air." Outside, the November morning was crisp and clear. Callie leaned against the building's brick wall, pulling out her phone. Her finger hovered over Reese's last message. It would be so easy to reach out, to let someone else carry some of this weight for a moment. Instead, she called Noah. "Cal?" His voice was groggy. She'd probably woken him. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." She forced cheerfulness into her voice. "Just checking in. Want to do something today? After my shift? We could go to that bookstore you like." A pause. "Don't you have work at the hotel?" "I can call in. One night won't kill us." It would hurt financially, but suddenly the thought of not seeing him, of letting him slip further away, was unbearable. "You don't have to." "I want to." She closed her eyes, remembering her grandmother's words. I choose this, Noah. I choose you. Every day. The silence stretched so long she thought he might have hung up. Finally, in a small voice, the new manga volume I like came out. Perfect. She smiled even though he couldn't see it. I'll be home by 3. Back inside, she found a text from Reese waiting. Bad time to haunt the coffee shop? Could use another dose of cardiac arrest. Her heart did a complicated little dance, but Noah's voice echoed in her head, and her grandmother's words lingered like smoke. She couldn't add more complications to their already precarious balance. Not today, she wrote back. Some ghosts need to stay ghosts. She pocketed her phone before she could see his response, turning back to the familiar rhythm of coffee and customers. But her grandmother's card sat heavy in her apron pocket, a constant reminder of choices and consequences, of pride and need, of the fine line between holding on and holding back. The morning crowd ebbed and flowed, and Callie moved through it automatically, her mind split between Noah and her grandmother's offer. Was she being selfish? Was her pride really worth Noah's future? The questions chased each other like carousel horses, never reaching an answer. Around noon, a delivery arrived, a single cup of coffee from the expensive cafe down the street. The note attached read simply, "Some ghosts are stubborn. Hope your day gets better. R." Callie held the cup, feeling its warmth seep into her cold fingers. Such a simple gesture, but it cracked something in her carefully constructed walls. Because maybe that's what she really needed. Not grand gestures or financial solutions, but small kindnesses. Understanding without demands. Warmth without strings. She didn't respond to his message, but she drank the coffee slowly, letting its warmth spread through her chest, a small defiance against the cold weight of impossible choices. Later, she would face her doubts about Noah, about her own adequacy, about the future looming like a storm on the horizon. But for now, she let herself be comforted by this small act of care from a man who seemed to understand that sometimes the greatest gift is simply saying, "I see you," without trying to fix everything. The coffee cup, when empty, went into her bag instead of the trash. A reminder, perhaps, that even on the hardest days, unexpected light could find its way through the cracks in her armor, or maybe just a token of possibility, of a door still waiting to be opened when she was ready to reach for the key. The Royal Crescent Hotel's service elevator was out of order again, forcing Callie to lug cases of premium liquor up the back stairs. Her arms burned, and her grandmother's words from 3 days ago still echoed in her head like an unwelcome chorus. She hadn't told Noah about the visit or the offer. Some truths felt too heavy to share. Need help with that? She nearly dropped the case. Reese stood at the top of the stairs, his suit jacket draped over one arm, tie loosened. In the dim stairwell light, he looked less like a CEO and more like a man at the end of a very long day. Let me guess, another tech conference? She tried to sound casual despite her racing heart. Board meeting. He descended the stairs, taking the case from her arms before she could protest. 12 hours of defending every decision I've made in the last quarter while trying not to think about the fact that my ex-wife's lawyer is circling like a shark. Sounds fun. She led him toward the bar storage room, trying to ignore how his presence seemed to fill the narrow space. Though I have to ask, why are you in the back stairs instead of the main elevator? Hiding. His smile was self-deprecating. Maxwell Porter is still lurking in the lobby. Apparently, restraining orders are just suggestions to him. Callie's stomach tightened. Should I be worried about having a stalker at my workplace? No. His voice hardened. I've got hotel security on it, and my lawyers are handling it. He set the case down in the storage room. I hate that my mess might affect other people. Affect you. The concern in his voice made something warm bloom in her chest. I can handle myself. I believe that. Their eyes met in the dim light. You handle everything, don't you? The question hit too close to home. Callie turned away, pretending to organize bottles. Someone has to. But who handles things for you? She stilled, the weight of unshed tears suddenly heavy in her throat. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. Noah's name flashed on the screen, sending a spike of anxiety through her chest. But this time, it wasn't a crisis. Just a photo, a completed sketch, his first since the night he'd destroyed his artwork. The image showed a young woman holding up the world, her face strained but determined. It was clearly meant to be her. Everything okay? Reese's voice was soft with concern. Yeah. She showed him the image before she could think better of it. My brother. He's an artist. He hasn't drawn anything in weeks, not since. It's beautiful. Reese studied the image. He really sees you. Too well sometimes. She pocketed the phone. I should get back to work. Have dinner with me. The words hung in the air between them. Callie's heart stuttered. I can't. Because of work? Or because you're afraid to want something for yourself? She met his eyes, finding no judgment there, only understanding. Both. Neither. It's complicated. Life usually is. He stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. One dinner, Callie. No expectations, no pressure. Just a chance to put down the world for a couple of hours. She thought of Noah's drawing, her holding up the world. Of her grandmother's cutting words about pride and necessity. Of the exhaustion that seemed to live in her bones these days. I have conditions, she found herself saying. His smile was gentle. Name them. Somewhere casual. I'm not playing. Dress up. She ticked off points on her fingers. I need at least 3 days' notice to arrange coverage for my shifts. And if Noah needs me, you go, no questions asked. He finished her sentence. I understand priorities, Callie. I'm not asking you to reshape your life just to let me in for a moment. The sincerity in his voice made her chest ache. Why me? You could have anyone. Because you saw me as a person before you knew I was a CEO. Because you offered sanctuary without asking for anything in return. He ran a hand through his dark hair. Because when I'm with you, I feel like maybe I'm not as broken as my ex-wife made me believe. The raw honesty in his words stripped away her defenses. Saturday, she heard herself say. I can do Saturday evening. His smile was like sunrise breaking through clouds. I know a great Vietnamese place in the quarter. Small, family-owned, best pho in the city. No fancy restaurants trying to impress me? You don't strike me as someone who's impressed by expensive things. He reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement, and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The touch was feather-light but sent electricity dancing across her skin. I'd rather impress you with good food and better conversation. The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Then voices in the hallway broke the spell, other staff members approaching. Reese stepped back, and Callie felt the loss of his warmth like a physical thing. Saturday, he said, softly. I'll text you the details. She watched him leave, her skin still tingling where he'd touched her. Only when she was sure she was alone did she allow herself to lean against the wall, heart racing like she'd run a marathon. What was she doing? She had responsibilities, a brother who needed her, bills that kept her up at night. She didn't have time for whatever this was becoming. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Noah. The art teacher saw my sketch. She wants me to submit it to a contest. Joy and pride burst in her chest, momentarily drowning out her anxiety. She quickly typed back, "That's amazing. We should celebrate. Maybe just pizza and movies, like we used to do with Mom?" The mention of their mother didn't hurt as much as usual. Perfect. I'll pick up your favorite on my way home. Pocketing her phone, Callie returned to the bar, her mind spinning between Saturday's promise and Noah's small victory. As she set up for the evening rush, she found herself humming, something she hadn't done in months. Someone's in a good mood, Roman commented, raising an eyebrow. My brother's entering an art contest. She said it casually, not mentioning the other reason for her lightness. The same brother who had you running out of here like the building was on fire last week? Roman's voice was gentle. He doing better? Callie thought about the sketch, about Noah reaching out instead of withdrawing. Yeah, I think maybe he is. The night passed in a blur of customers and cocktails. Around midnight, during a lull, she pulled out her phone to find a text from Reese. Is it Saturday yet? Something warm unfurled in her chest. Eager to try the best pho in the city? Eager to see you somewhere that doesn't involve me hiding from lawyers or you serving drinks? She shouldn't be smiling this much at a text. Shouldn't be feeling this flutter of anticipation. But maybe, just maybe it was okay to want something for herself. To be more than just Noah's sister, more than just a survivor. As if reading her thoughts, her phone lit up with her grandmother's number. Callie stared at it until the call went to voicemail, the weight of responsibility settling back onto her shoulders. But this time, it felt a little lighter. Because maybe holding up the world didn't mean she had to do it alone. She glanced at her reflection in the bar's mirrored wall. The same tired eyes looked back at her, the same worry lines around her mouth. But there was something else there too, a spark of hope, of possibility, of a woman who was more than just the sum of her obligations. Saturday suddenly felt very far away. But for the first time in years, Callie found herself looking forward to something that was just for her. The guilt was still there, humming beneath her skin. But it was quieter now, drowned out by the memory of Reese's gentle touch and the joy of Noah's renewed creativity. Sometimes, she thought, the bravest thing isn't carrying the weight alone, it's letting someone else help you bear it. Saturday arrived with the weight of expectation. Callie stood in front of her modest closet, trying to find something that struck the right balance between casual and put together. Noah lounged on her bed, sketching absently while offering commentary. The blue sweater, he said, not looking, up from his notebook. It brings out your eyes. Since when are you a fashion expert? But she pulled out the sweater, soft, worn in the right places but still holding its shape. Like her. Since you've tried on everything else you own twice. Now he did look up, his eyes knowing. You really like this guy, don't you? Callie busied herself with brushing her hair, avoiding her brother's gaze. It's just dinner. Right, that's why you're wearing Mom's necklace. Her hand flew to the simple silver pendant at her throat, a tiny compass rose their mother had always worn. I just felt like wearing it. Noah set aside his sketchbook, his expression serious. You don't have to feel guilty, you know, about wanting something for yourself. The words hit too close to home. I'm not. You are. He stood, suddenly looking older than his 18 years. You've put your whole life on hold for me, and I know that's partly my fault. Noah, no. Let me finish. His voice was firm. I'm not okay, not completely, but I'm better than I was, and you deserve. He gestured at her closet, her attempts at preparing for this date. You deserve to have something that's just yours. Tears pricked at Callie's eyes. When did you get so wise? Probably around the same time you got so stubborn about taking care of everyone but yourself. He picked up the blue sweater, holding it out to her. Go, have dinner. Laugh. Be someone other than just my sister for a few hours. She pulled him into a fierce hug, breathing in the familiar scent of his shampoo and graphite. I'm always your sister. That doesn't change. I know. He squeezed her back. But you're also Callie, and maybe it's time you remembered that. An hour later, she stood outside Maison Six Lo, the Vietnamese restaurant Reese had chosen. True to his word, it was small and unassuming, tucked between a bookstore and a jazz club in the French Quarter. The early evening air was crisp, carrying the scent of spices and possibility. You look beautiful. She turned to find Reese approaching, dressed casually in dark jeans and a gray sweater that made his eyes look like sterling silver. No power suit, no CEO armor. Just a man who looked a little nervous, a little hopeful. You clean up nice yourself, she said, trying to calm her racing heart. Though I half expected you to show up in a suit. And have you accused me of trying to impress you? His smile was warm. I told you, good food and better conversation. No pretense needed. Inside, the restaurant was cozy and warmly lit, with wooden tables and colorful lanterns hanging from the ceiling. The elderly Vietnamese woman who greeted them clearly knew Reese, chattering at him in a mix of English and Vietnamese while leading them to a corner table. I found this place during the worst days of the divorce, Reese explained once they were seated. Mrs. Nguyen basically adopted me, kept telling me I was too skinny, needed more pho. Grandmothers are the same in every culture, Callie said, thinking of her own grandmother's criticisms, though they were usually about everything except her eating habits. Speaking from experience? She tensed slightly, remembering their recent confrontation. It's complicated. Most family things are. He studied her face. Want to talk about it? Not really. She picked up the menu, though the characters blurred before her eyes. Not tonight. Tonight I want to be someone else. Someone who doesn't have complicated family dynamics or 2 jobs or endless responsibilities. Okay. His voice was gentle. Who do you want to be? She looked up, meeting his gaze. Just Callie. Just me. I like just Callie. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. She's pretty amazing. The touch sent warmth spreading through her chest. You barely know me. I know you work harder than anyone I've ever met. I know. You have a smile that you save for when you're really happy. Not just being polite. His thumb traced patterns on her palm. I know you hide behind those earbuds sometimes, even when there's no music playing. I know you're stronger than you think and more tired than you admit. Careful, she said softly. You're making me sound interesting. You are interesting. Fascinating, actually. His eyes held hers. And I'd like to know more if you'll let me. Before she could respond, Mrs. Nguyen returned with 2 steaming bowls of pho and a knowing smile. The conversation shifted to lighter topics as they ate. Favorite books, childhood memories, embarrassing stories. Reese told her about growing up in Seattle with programmer parents who spoke in code and showed affection through debugging metaphors. She shared stories about learning to make gumbo with her mom, each attempt worse than the last until they finally got it right. What about your father? He asked carefully. Left when I was 10. Noah was 2. She stirred her soup. Sent birthday cards for a while, then stopped completely. Classic deadbeat dad story. Is that why you find it hard to trust? The question caught her off guard. What makes you think I have trust issues? Because I have them too. He set down his spoon. When Christina left, it wasn't just the betrayal of taking company information. It was the realization that someone could share your bed, your life, your dreams, and still be plotting against you. That must have been awful. It was, still is some days. His honesty was disarming. But sitting here with you, it makes me want to try again. To trust again. The intensity of his gaze made her chest tight. Even though I come with complications? A brother who needs me? 2 jobs that eat up all my time? Those aren't complications, Callie. They're parts of who you are. He reached for her hand again. I'm not asking you to change anything. I'm just asking for a chance to be part of your world, whatever that looks like. Something inside her cracked, like ice breaking up in spring. I'm not very good at letting people in. That's okay. His smile was gentle. I'm not very good at it either. Maybe we can be not very good at it together. After dinner, they walked through the quarter, the streets alive with music and laughter. Their hands found each other naturally, fingers intertwining like they'd done this 100 times before. The night air was cool, but Callie felt warm from the inside out. They stopped outside a jazz club, where a saxophone player was performing, on the sidewalk, his music wrapping around them like silk. Without warning, Reese pulled her into a gentle sway. What are you doing? She laughed, even as she moved with him. Dancing with a beautiful woman on a New Orleans street. His eyes sparkled. Is that allowed? People are watching. Let them. He spun her slowly. Maybe they need to be reminded that magic still exists in the world. And it did feel like magic, this moment, this man, this version of herself that was emerging from behind carefully constructed walls. For the first time in years, Callie felt truly present, truly alive. Her phone buzzed in her pocket and reality threatened to intrude. But when she checked it, it was just Noah. Hope you're having fun. Don't come home early on my account. I'm good, promise. Something eased in her chest. She showed Reese the message. Smart kid, he said softly. He really loves you. Yeah. She tucked the phone away. He's the best thing in my life. Not the only good thing anymore, I hope. She looked up at him, this man who'd somehow slipped past her defenses with coffee deliveries and gentle understanding. No, she admitted. Not the only good thing. The saxophonist switched to a slower tune, something sweet and yearning. Reese pulled her closer and Callie let herself melt into him, into this moment that felt both completely impossible and absolutely right. I should get home, she said eventually, though she made no move to pull away. I know. His hand was warm, on her lower back. But just stay here a minute longer? The world can wait. And for once, Callie let it wait. Let herself exist in this space between responsibility and desire, between who she was and who she could be. Because sometimes she was learning, the bravest thing you can do is allow yourself to want more than survival. The night wrapped around them like a blanket, and somewhere in the distance, church bells chimed the hour. But time felt different. Here, stretched and sweet like honey, marking not the passing of minutes but the slow, steady bloom of something new and fragile and beautiful. Monday morning hit like a hangover, though Callie hadn't touched a drop of alcohol. She moved through her coffee shop shift in a daze, remembering the feel of Reese's arms around her, the sound of jazz floating through the quarter, the way he'd kissed her goodnight. Soft and sweet and full of promise. Earth to Callie, destiny, waved a hand in front of her face. Girl, you've been steaming that milk for like 2 minutes. What's got you so distracted? Before Callie could answer, the cafe's door chimed. Her heart did a little flip when she saw Reese, but something was wrong. His face was tight, his usual grace replaced by barely contained tension. Can we talk? His voice was strained. Privately? The break room was empty, thank God. Reese paced the small space like a caged animal while Callie's stomach twisted with anxiety. Christina's lawyer leaked stories to the press. The words came out in a rush. About us, about you. They're trying to paint me as... God, Callie, I'm so sorry. What exactly are they saying? Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. He ran, a hand through his hair, already disheveled from what she suspected was repeated stress gesturing. That I'm taking advantage of an employee at the hotel. That it's a pattern, powerful man, vulnerable woman. They're twisting everything to make it look sordid. But nothing's happened. The irony of protesting this in a break room closet wasn't lost on her. We had one date. They have photos. He pulled out his phone, showing her a gossip website. There they were, dancing on the street, looking at each other like, oh, like two people falling in love. And they did their research, found out about your 2 jobs, your brother, your financial situation. They're spinning it like I'm using you. Callie's hands shook as she scrolled through the article. Words jumped out at her. Power imbalance, power, pattern of predatory behavior, vulnerable single guardian. They'd even dug up her dropped nursing degree, painting her as a struggling young woman ripe for exploitation. This is going to affect your custody case with Noah. Reese's voice cracked. Your grandmother, my team found out she's petitioning for guardianship. This will give her ammunition. The room spun slightly. How did they know all this? Maxwell Porter? Reese spat the name like poison. He's working with Christina now. They're trying to destroy my reputation, prove I'm unfit to run the company, and they're using you to do it. She handed his phone back, her movements mechanical. What do we do? We? He looked at her with a mixture of hope and anguish. Callie, I wouldn't blame you if you walked away. This is my mess, my fight. And what? I'm just supposed to pretend Saturday night never happened? She stepped closer to him. That I don't feel this. Whatever this is between us? He reached for her, then stopped himself. They'll tear you apart. The press, the lawyers, they'll dig into every aspect of your life. Noah's mental health, your mother's death, every financial struggle, they'll make it all public. Let them. The words came out stronger than she felt. I'm not ashamed of my life, Reese, of taking care of my brother, of working hard, of surviving. You don't understand. His voice was desperate. They'll twist everything. Make it seem like Noah's unstable, like you're an unfit guardian. Your grandmother's lawyers will have a field day. Reality crashed in like a tidal wave. Noah. Everything came back to protecting Noah. I need to think. Of course. He stepped back, creating physical distance that felt like miles. I had to warn you, before you saw it online, or... A knock at the break room door made them both jump. Destiny's voice came through. Callie, your brother's school is on the phone. They say it's urgent. The bottom dropped out of Callie's world. She fumbled for her phone. 3 missed calls from the school. How had she not noticed? Go, Reese said softly. We'll figure this out later. She grabbed the cafe's cordless phone from Destiny, her hands shaking as she pressed it to her ear. The school counselor's voice was grave. Ms. Monroe, there's been an incident. Noah had a severe panic attack during his presentation. He's asking for you. I'll be right there. She was already untying her apron. Is he safe? He's with me in my office, but Callie... The counselor hesitated. His grandmother is here too. She's threatening to call Child Protective Services. The world tilted on its axis. Callie looked at Reese, saw the understanding and pain in his eyes. Everything was falling apart, and somehow, impossibly, the universe was forcing her to choose between her heart and her brother. Tell him I'm coming. She hung up, turning to Reese. I have to go. He reached out, then let his hand fall. Take care of Noah. That's what matters. She wanted to say more, to explain that this wasn't fair, that she'd just found him, that Saturday night had felt like the beginning of something real. But there wasn't time. Noah needed her. As she rushed out of the cafe, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the window. She was still wearing her mother's compass rose necklace. The irony wasn't lost on her, a symbol of direction when she felt completely lost. The taxi ride to the school was a blur of anxiety and half-formed prayers. Her phone buzzed with notifications. Probably more press coverage, more scandal, more complications. She ignored them all, focusing on the only thing that mattered: getting to Noah. But in the quiet of the back seat, watching the city blur past, Callie allowed herself one moment of grief for what might have been. For jazz music and gentle dancing, for understanding eyes and careful touches, for the possibility of being more than just a survivor. The taxi pulled up to the school, and Callie straightened her spine. There would be time for heartbreak later. Right now, she had a brother to protect, a grandmother to face, and a world to hold up, even if it felt like it was crumbling around her. As she walked through the school's front doors, her phone buzzed one final time. A text from Reese. Whatever happens, know that Saturday night was real. All of it. She didn't respond. Couldn't respond. Because sometimes love isn't about what you want. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice to protect the people who depend on you. The school corridor stretched before her like a gauntlet. Somewhere ahead, Noah waited. Her grandmother waited. Choices waited. And Callie did what she'd always done. She put one foot in front of the other, carrying the weight of responsibility like a cross, even as her heart whispered of storm-gray eyes and gentle hands and possibilities lost before they could truly begin. Because that's what love is sometimes. Not just the soaring joy of connection, but the crushing weight of choosing between two kinds of heartbreak. And Callie knew, with every step toward the counselor's office, which heart she would have to break first, her own. The school counselor's office felt too small for the storm brewing inside it. Noah sat hunched in a corner chair, his sketchbook clutched to his chest like armor. Mrs. Winters stood by the window, her elegant posture a stark contrast to the institutional setting. The counselor, Dr. Chen, sat behind her desk with the weary expression of someone watching a train wreck in slow motion. Finally, Mrs. Winters said as Callie entered, "Now we can discuss this situation properly." "What happened?" Callie ignored her grandmother, going straight to Noah. His face was pale, eyes red-rimmed. "He was supposed to present his artwork to the class," Dr. Chen explained gently. "For the contest submission. I couldn't." Noah's voice was barely a whisper. Everyone was staring, and the walls started closing in, and I couldn't breathe, and this is exactly why he needs proper care," Mrs. Winters interjected. "Professional help, structure, not a sister who's too busy working multiple jobs and dating wealthy men to properly. Don't." Callie's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Don't you dare make this about that." But her grandmother was already pulling out her phone, showing Dr. Chen the gossip site article. "My granddaughter is clearly overwhelmed. Now she's involved with some tech CEO who's using her for—" "Stop it!" Noah suddenly shouted, making everyone jump. "Just stop. You don't know anything about Callie, about what she's done for me. About—" He looked at his sister, tears in his eyes. "About how she's the only one who's never given up on me." "Noah," Mrs. Winters softened her voice, "I'm not giving up on you. I'm trying to help. By taking me away from the only person who makes me feel safe." He clutched his sketchbook tighter. "By using her personal life against her?" Dr. Chen cleared her throat. "Perhaps we should focus on what's best for Noah's mental health. His anxiety clearly needs more consistent management." "I have an appointment scheduled," Callie said quickly, "with a therapist, next week. One you can barely afford," her grandmother countered. "On your salary?" "I'll figure it out." Callie's voice was steel. "I always do." "And that's the problem." Mrs. Winters threw up her hands. "You're always figuring it out, always one crisis away from collapse. Noah deserves stability." "I am stable." But even as she said it, Callie felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. The scandals, the press, the threats of CPS, it was all ammunition against her. Her phone buzzed, a text from Reese. "My lawyer can help. Let me do this for you. For both of you." She stared at the message, feeling the weight of pride and necessity warring in her chest. Accepting his help would only prove her grandmother right, prove she couldn't handle this alone. But refusing it might cost her Noah. "I'd like to speak with my sister alone." Noah's voice was quiet but firm. "Please." Dr. Chen nodded, ushering Mrs. Winters out despite her protests. When the door closed, the silence felt heavy with unspoken words. "I saw the article," Noah said finally. "About you and Reese." Callie's heart clenched. "Noah. You're going to push him away, aren't you?" His eyes met hers, too knowing for his age. "Because of me. Because it might hurt our case." "It's not that simple." "It is." He opened his sketchbook, showing her a new drawing. A woman, standing at a crossroads, one path leading to light, the other to safety. It was her again. Always her. "You're always choosing the safe path, the responsible path, but Cal..." His voice cracked. "What if safe isn't always right?" She sank into the chair next to him, suddenly exhausted. "I can't lose you." "You won't." He took her hand, his grip surprisingly strong. "But I can't watch you lose everything else, not for me." "You're not just everything else, Noah. You're my brother, my family. And you're mine." He squeezed her hand. "Which means I get a say in this too. And I say, let him help. Let someone else be strong for a change." Callie felt tears threatening. When did you get so wise? Probably around the same time you got so stubborn. His attempt at a smile was shaky but real. I'm not okay, Cal, not completely, but I'm getting there. And maybe part of getting there is watching you be happy too. Before she could respond, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Through the door's window, Callie saw Reese arguing with her grandmother, his usual composure replaced by fierce determination. Is that him? Noah asked, watching the scene. Yeah. She couldn't help the softness that crept into her voice. He came. Noah's observation was simple but weighted. Even knowing it would make things worse with the press, he came. The door opened and Dr. Chen stepped back in. Ms. Monroe, Mr. Callahan is asking to speak with you. He says his lawyer has information about your grandmother's custody petition. Callie looked at Noah, who nodded. Go. I'll be okay. In the hallway, Reese stood like a man prepared for battle, his lawyer a formidable presence beside him. Mrs. Winters watched them with narrow eyes. Christina's lawyer leaked the custody petition to the press, Reese said without preamble. They're trying to force my board to vote me out by making it look like I'm involved in a custody battle scandal. How dare you bring this circus to my grandson's school, Mrs. Winters began, but Reese's lawyer smoothly interrupted. Mrs. Winters, we have evidence that you've been collaborating with Maxwell Porter, sharing private information about your grandchildren in an attempt to manipulate this situation. The lawyer's smile was razor sharp. I'm sure the family court judge would be very interested in that. Color drained from her grandmother's face. I was trying to protect my grandson. By exploiting his sister? By using his mental health? As a weapon? Reese's voice was quiet but intense. That's not protection, Mrs. Winters, that's manipulation. Callie felt the world tilting on its axis. Grandmother, is this true? Mrs. Winters lifted her chin. Everything I did for... Don't. Callie's voice shook. Don't say it was for us. It was for you, your reputation, your control. The custody petition was never about Noah's welfare, Reese's lawyer added. Our investigation shows Mrs. Winters has been working with Porter for weeks planning this media circus. The betrayal hit Callie like a physical blow. All this time, her own grandmother had been orchestrating their destruction, using Noah's vulnerability as a weapon. Get out. The words came from Noah, who stood in the doorway of Dr. Chen's office. I don't want to live with you. I don't want your help. I want my sister. Mrs. Winters took a step toward him. Noah, darling. No. He moved to stand beside. Callie, you don't get to pretend you care now, not after what you did. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Mrs. Winters gathered her designer purse and what remained of her dignity. You'll regret this, both of you. They watched her walk away, her heels clicking against the linoleum like fading gunshots. Only when she was gone did Callie allow herself to lean slightly against Reese, feeling the solid strength of him beside her. I'm sorry, he murmured, for all of this. Don't be. She looked up at him, seeing the worry and care in his storm-gray eyes. You came, even though it made things worse for you. You came. Of course I came. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. You and Noah. You're not alone in this anymore. If you'll let me, if you'll let us. Us, Callie glanced at his lawyer, who smiled. We have enough evidence to stop the custody petition, the lawyer explained, and to handle the press, but you'll have to trust us, both of you. Noah reached out, taking Callie's other hand. They stood there in the school hallway, a chain of connected hands and shared strength. For the first time since this nightmare began, Callie felt something like hope unfurling in her chest. Because maybe Noah was right. Maybe sometimes the brave choice isn't the safe one. Maybe sometimes strength means letting someone else help. You carry the weight. Okay, she said softly, squeezing both their hands. Okay. Outside, the New Orleans sun broke through the clouds, casting long shadows and promises of light. And in that moment, Callie understood something her mother had once told her. That family isn't always blood, but it's always choice. And today, in this hallway, with her brother on one side and Reese on the other, she was choosing to believe in something bigger than survival. She was choosing to believe in love. 2 weeks after the school confrontation, Callie stood in the entrance of the Royal Crescent Hotel's grand ballroom, watching a different kind of event unfold. Tonight wasn't about scandals or corporate politics. It was Noah's art show. After the truth about their grandmother's manipulation came out, Dr. Chen had suggested that Noah needed a win, something to boost his confidence. The contest submission had turned into a full exhibition when Reese quietly arranged for several local artists to mentor young talents. Now Noah's work hung alongside other emerging artists, his dark, emotional pieces drawing surprising attention. "You know," Reese said softly, appearing beside her with 2 glasses of champagne, "your brother's becoming quite the talk of the New Orleans art scene." Callie accepted the glass, watching Noah across the room. He was actually talking to people, explaining his work with tentative confidence. No panic attacks, no hiding, just a young artist finding his voice. "Thank you," she said, meaning more than just the champagne. "For all of this. I just provided the space." Reese's hand found the small of her back, warm and steady. "He did the hard part. You both did." The past 2 weeks had been a whirlwind of changes. Reese's lawyers had systematically dismantled their grandmother's custody case, using evidence of her collusion with Porter to force her to withdraw the petition. The press scandal had backfired when several hotel employees came forward to defend Callie, painting a picture not of exploitation but of genuine connection. But the biggest changes had been quieter, more personal. Noah starting therapy with a specialist Reese recommended. Callie finally accepting help with the medical bills. Small steps toward healing, toward trust, toward something like peace. "His latest series is incredible," Reese continued, nodding toward the back wall where Noah's newest works hung. "What did he call it?" "Fragments of Home," Callie said softly. "It's about us, family, how sometimes broken pieces make a better picture." The centerpiece of the series was a triptych. The first panel showed a young woman holding up a crumbling world. The second showed her sharing the weight with shadowy figures. And the third showed her dancing, the world above her now held by many hands, allowing her moment of joy. "He sees you so clearly," Reese murmured, understanding the symbolism immediately. "Both your strength and your right to lay that strength down, sometimes." Callie leaned into him slightly, allowing herself this moment of vulnerability. "I'm learning. It's not easy, but I'm learning." "Ms. Monroe?" A woman in elegant business attire approached them. "I'm Rebecca Martinez from the New Orleans Art Institute. I wondered if I might speak with your brother about our Young Artists program." Callie's heart skipped. The Art Institute was prestigious, expensive, and exactly what Noah deserved. Before anxiety about costs could fully form, she felt Reese squeeze her hand. "Go," he whispered. "Let him have this moment. We'll figure out the rest together." She crossed the ballroom to where Noah stood with the gallery owner, discussing his technique. When she told him about Rebecca's interest, his eyes lit up with a spark she hadn't seen since before their mother died. "Really?" He looked past her to where the Institute representative waited. "But can we afford—" "Don't worry about that right now," Callie said firmly. "Just go talk to her. Dream a little." She watched him walk away, shoulders straight, portfolio in hand. Pride bloomed in her chest, so intense it almost hurt. "He's going to be okay, you know." Reese's voice was soft behind her. "More than okay. I know." And she did know with a certainty that felt like sunrise. "He's finding his way. And what about you?" He turned her gently to face him. "Are you ready to find yours?" Callie looked up at him, this man who'd crashed into her life with coffee, orders, and understanding, who'd fought for her family like it was his own, who looked at her broken pieces and saw constellations instead of scars. I think, she touched her mother's compass rose necklace, I think maybe I already have. Even with all the complications, the press, the business drama, the fact that I come with my own set of trust issues and emotional baggage. Especially because of those things. She stepped closer to him. Because you understand what it means to rebuild, to choose love even when it's scary, to trust even after being broken. Around them, the art show continued. People admiring Noah's work, discussing prices and techniques, planning futures. But in their corner of the ballroom, time seemed to slow, to crystallize around this moment. I love you, Rhys said quietly, like a secret, like a prayer. Not despite your complications, but because of them. Because you're strong enough to carry the world and brave enough to let it go sometimes. Because you love fiercely and completely, even when it costs you everything. Tears pricked at Callie's eyes. I love you too, for seeing me, really seeing me. Not just the survivor or the sister or the girl with 2 jobs, but all of me. He brushed away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. Always. A commotion near Noah's display drew their attention. A small crowd had gathered, and in the center, Noah was shaking hands with Rebecca Martinez, his face glowing with possibility. Should we go see what that's about? Rhys asked, offering his arm. In a minute. Callie wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her head against his chest. Just let me have this moment first. Let me remember what it feels like to be here, to be whole, to be happy. His heart beat steady under her ear. Yeah, she smiled. Happy. They stood there in their private bubble of joy while around them, life continued its beautiful, chaotic dance. Somewhere in the city, their grandmother was probably plotting her next move. Somewhere in a corporate office, Christina and Porter were probably scheming new attacks. But here, in this moment, none of that mattered. Because Noah was flying, finally spreading the wings she'd always known he had. Because Rhys's arms felt like home in a way she'd almost forgotten was possible. Because sometimes love isn't about perfect timing or smooth paths. It's about finding someone who helps you carry your burdens and celebrates when you set them down. Callie, Noah's voice cut through her reverie. Cal, you need to come hear this. She looked up at Rhys, who smiled that smile that still made her heart skip. Ready to go being proud, sister? Ready to go be happy, she corrected. The rest is just details. Hand in hand, they walked toward Noah, toward whatever news had put that light in his eyes. Behind them, the triptych watched over the room, the woman dancing while many hands held up her world. Not a story of burden anymore, but one of liberation, of love, of family chosen, and earned and built from broken pieces into something stronger than before. Outside, New Orleans nights worked their ancient magic, weaving stories of redemption and resurrection, of love found in coffee shops and art galleries, of brothers who learned to fly and sisters who learned to dance. Because that's what the city did. It took broken things and made them beautiful, took lost souls and gave them homes, took ordinary moments and turned them into magic. And in the middle of it all, Callie Monroe, sister, survivor, lover, fighter, finally understood what her mother's compass rose had been trying to tell her all along. That sometimes the truest direction isn't forward or back, but simply toward love. 6 months later, spring painted New Orleans in shades of renewal. Callie stood in the doorway of Noah's dorm room at the New Orleans Art Institute, watching him arrange his space with meticulous care. His new sketches covered one wall, bright, hopeful pieces that showed how far he'd come from the dark spirals of his depression. You know, she said, helping him hang a string of lights. When Mom said you'd find your path, I don't think even she imagined this. Noah smiled, adjusting a sketch of their mother he'd drawn from an old photograph. She'd love this place. All the creativity, the chaos, the possibility. She'd love seeing you happy. Callie touched the compass rose at her throat. That's all she ever wanted for us. For both of us, Noah corrected, giving her a knowing look. Speaking of which, when are you going to tell Rhys about the letter? Callie's hand went to her bag, where the acceptance letter from the nursing program burned like a promise. After months of encouragement from both Noah and Reese, she'd finally reapplied. The scholarship offer had arrived that morning. "Tonight," she said. "He's cooking dinner at his place. Says he has news about the company." The custody scandal had ultimately backfired on Christina and Porter. When their manipulation came to light, several key clients had returned to Reese's company, impressed by how he'd handled the crisis. The last 6 months had been about rebuilding his company, their trust, their shared future. "You're not nervous about moving in together?" Noah asked, arranging art supplies on his desk. "It's a big step." "Terrified," Callie admitted, "but ready. You're settled here, the company's stable, and she smiled. "I'm ready to live instead of just survive." Noah hugged her suddenly, fierce and tight. "I'm so proud of you, Cal, for letting yourself be happy, for trusting, for everything." She held him close, marveling at how her little brother had grown into this wise, talented young man. "You're going to be amazing here, you know that?" "I know." His confidence wasn't arrogance. It was hard-won self-knowledge. "My therapist says I'm ready, and I believe her." They finished setting up his room, making plans for weekly dinners and regular check-ins. But there was no panic now, no desperate need to hover. Noah was ready to fly, and Callie was finally ready to let him. Later that evening, she stood in Reese's kitchen, soon to be their kitchen, watching him cook while classical music played softly in the background. The domesticity of it all still amazed her sometimes. "The board meeting went well," he said, stirring something that smelled divine. "Christina's trying to start her own company, but most of our old clients are staying. They trust us now, more than ever. Because you showed them what integrity looks like." She wrapped her arms around him from behind. "What strength looks like." He turned in her embrace, his storm gray eyes soft. "I have news." "Me too." She pulled back slightly. "You first. The company's opening a charitable foundation." His smile was gentle. "For mental health support, especially for young artists and their families. We're calling it the Monroe Foundation." Callie's breath caught. "Reese, Noah's going to be on the youth advisory board," he continued. "And we're partnering with the Art Institute to provide scholarships for students who need therapy alongside their education." Tears blurred her vision. "You're impossible, you know that?" "Says the woman who taught me how to love again." He brushed away her tears. "Your turn. What's your news?" Instead of speaking, she handed him the acceptance letter, watched his eyes widen as he read it, then crinkle with joy. "Full scholarship?" His voice was thick with emotion. "Callie, this is amazing." "I'll have to cut back at work," she said. "Maybe just keep the hotel job since the hours work better with classes. And with moving in here." "Yes." He pulled her close. "Yes to all of it. To school, to living together, to building a life that's more than just survival." She kissed him then, tasting joy and possibility and the future on his lips. When they parted, he pressed his forehead to hers. "Your mother would be so proud of you both," he whispered, "of Noah finding his voice through art, of you finding your way back to your dreams. She'd like you," Callie said softly. "Your quiet strength, your way of loving without trying to fix everything. I learned that from you." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "That sometimes love is just about being present, about staying." The timer dinged, reminding them of dinner. But they stood there a moment longer, holding each other in the gentle light of their shared kitchen, their shared future. Later that night, they sat on their balcony. And it was theirs now, this space they'd create together. The New Orleans. Night wrapped around them like a familiar blanket. Jazz music floating up from the quarter, stars peeking through the city's glow. Noah's art teacher asked him to submit pieces for a major show, Callie said, curled against Reese's chest. In New York. I know. She could hear his smile. He's already asked me about suit rentals for the opening. The easy way he included himself in these family moments still warmed her heart. Thank you for loving us, both of us. Thank you for letting me. His arms tightened around her. For showing me that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about choice. About staying even when it's hard. Below them, the city pulsed with life and possibility. Somewhere across town, Noah was probably sketching in his new room, finding his place in the world. And here, in this moment, Callie finally understood what her mother had meant about New Orleans being a city of second chances. Because that's what they'd all found. Second chances at family, at dreams, at love. Not perfect or easy, but real. Built from broken pieces into something stronger, something beautiful. I love you, she whispered into the night air. Not just for what you've done for us, but for who you are. For your quiet strength and your endless patience and your way of seeing beauty in broken things. I love you too. He kissed her temple. For your fierce heart and your brave soul and your ability to dance even while carrying the world. They sat there, wrapped in each other and possibility, while the city spun its eternal magic around them. Because that's what love is, in the end. Not grand gestures or perfect moments, but the quiet choice to stay, to build, to believe in second chances and happy endings and the power of broken people loving each other whole again. Above them, stars winked like promises. And somewhere in the distance, a saxophone played a love song to the night. Callie touched her mother's compass rose, feeling its familiar shape against her skin. But now it wasn't just a reminder of what she'd lost. It was a guide toward what she'd found. Because sometimes the heart's true north isn't a place at all. Sometimes it's a person, a moment, a choice to believe in love. And here, in the arms of a man who saw her strength and her scars and loved both equally, Callie Monroe finally found her way home. 2 years later, the New York Gallery buzzed with excitement as Noah Monroe's first solo exhibition opened to rave reviews. Fragments of light filled the space with pieces that told stories of broken things made beautiful, of darkness transformed by hope, of family forged in fire and love. Callie stood in front of the centerpiece, a massive canvas showing a woman dancing in a New Orleans street while golden light poured from her hands, healing everything it touched. Her nurse's scrubs were barely visible under her elegant dress. She'd come straight from her hospital shift to make the opening. Your brother's really outdone himself, Reese said, sliding an arm around her waist. His wedding ring caught the light, matching the simple band on her own finger. They'd married 6 months ago in a small ceremony in the French Quarter, with Noah giving her away and jazz music filling the air. He has. Pride made her voice thick. Mom would love this. As if summoned by their conversation, Noah appeared beside them, looking sophisticated in his tailored suit. At 20, he carried himself with quiet confidence, his old anxieties transformed into artistic sensitivity rather than fear. The gallery wants to take the show to Paris, he announced, eyes bright with excitement, and they're talking about a permanent installation at the Monroe Foundation's new youth center. The foundation had grown beyond their wildest dreams, providing mental health support and artistic opportunities to hundreds of young people. Noah's own journey had become a beacon of hope for others struggling to find their voice. Paris? Callie's eyes widened. Noah, that's amazing. You'll both come, right? He looked between them. When it opens? Try and stop us, Reese smiled. Though we might have to wait until after. Callie touched her barely visible baby bump, still their secret to share. After the little one arrives. Noah's face lit up. Really? I'm going to be an uncle. In about 7 months. Callie's eyes filled with happy tears. You're the first to know. He hugged them both, and for a moment they stood there in their private bubble of joy while the art world celebrated around them. 3 broken people who'd found wholeness in each other, who'd turned survival into triumph, who'd learned that love isn't about perfect moments but perfect choices. Later that night, in their hotel room overlooking the city, Callie found the old article that had once threatened to tear them apart. She kept it as a reminder, not of pain, but of how far they'd come. No regrets? Reese asked, seeing what she was reading. Only that Mom isn't here to see this. She leaned into his embrace, to see Noah conquering the art world, to know I finally finished nursing school, to meet her grandchild. She sees. He kissed her temple. And I think she'd say you did exactly what she wanted. You chose love, in all its forms. You chose life. Outside, New York glittered like possibilities made light. But Callie's heart was in New Orleans, in the city that had taught her about second chances and resurrections. In 2 days they'd go home, to their house in the Garden District, to her work at the Children's Hospital, to Reese's company that now helped more than it profited, to the life they'd built from broken pieces and brave choices. Their grandmother had tried to reconnect last year, but on their terms this time. Small steps toward healing with boundaries firmly in place. Because that's what growing up had taught them, that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting and family can be both blood and choice. I love you, she whispered to her husband, her hand finding his over their growing child. For everything you are and everything you help us be. I love you more, he answered, the words worn smooth with time and truth. For showing me that broken things can shine the brightest. In the gallery below, Noah's art told their story to the world, not just of survival, but of triumph. Of a sister's love that built bridges to hope. Of a man who learned to trust, again. Of a boy who turned his pain into beauty. And somewhere, Callie liked to think, their mother was smiling. Because her children had done more than survive. They had learned to dance, to create, to love. They had learned to live. The compass rose still hung around Callie's neck, but now it pointed not to what was lost, but to what was found. To family, to future, to the light they made together. And that light? It was more than enough to guide them home. If you were in Callie's shoes, would you have the courage to trust in love again, even if you knew that this choice could put your brother's guardianship at risk? In a world where we constantly have to choose between security and happiness, would you choose to follow your heart or your reason? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.